The importance of this film is far beyond a historical document. For me, Riefenstahl is always the question, how would I react? The persistent question, what would you do? How would you stand up? Would you stand up?
Wenn Sie besessen sind in Ihrer Arbeit, dann geht auch eine gewisse Ausstrahlung und Kraft von Ihnen aus, die die Leute überzeugt.
Maybe you can talk about just how far back your own interest goes with Leni Riefenstahl, and then also what happened, I guess, at the very end of 2016 that revived that.
Growing up in Germany, you always you have this question, asking yourself, how could we go that wrong? So you grow up with this question. And Leni Riefenstahl is a major figure in it because she was the seducing power of, getting people to follow Hitler in a certain stage by portraying the way she did. So when I got the opportunity to interview her, I said yes, because I wanted to know how could she go that wrong. And I thought, well, she could have been such a good role model for me as a woman. I wanted to know, why did she pact with Hitler? And I didn't get any answers, 2 days. So I left the house and I thought, well, she lied. I didn't know, did she lie to myself? Or has she been lying to herself so many decades that she didn't know the difference between truth and lie? And so I stuck around, and in December 2016, I got the news that her husband died suddenly. And so I knew there's a house full of evidence. And I knew they would pack everything in 700 boxes and send it to a museum in Berlin, so it will be in the archives. That was her last will. And I tried, to catch this estate. And eventually I succeeded. And I said, let me unpack the boxes, see what's inside, make the first documentary out of the new evidence, and so everybody knows the story.
Why was Andres the person who you wanted to go to immediately?
Well, I know Andres. We haven't met until then, but of course I know all his films. I knew he's a political director, so someone who understands what he's working on, and he always has a reason to choose a topic. And then he's an educated psychologist, which is for Leni Riefenstahl essential to get to know this personality. He was the one and first and only choice. I don't know what we would have done if he would have said no.
Were you immediately sure you wanted to get involved?
No. Well, there was some curiosity, of course. But first of all, I wanted to know what is in the 700 boxes. So archive researchers started, and I got seduced. There was a lot of findings regarding, for example, the childhood, many new insight into the character, because this was one of the first questions for me. Who is Leni Riefenstahl beyond everything what we know? Also, some sort of curiosity, what does this mean for today? So these were like the magnets to go to sift through this huge amount of footage. One of the archive researchers, she called me and said, listen, there's a specific paper you should read. Why? Because she describes her wounds, her experience of violence with the father, being a child, getting thrown into the water. She had to learn how to swim. It's in the film. And actually, in the printed memoirs, it's quite different. So the first thing I was curious were the contradictions. Why? Because I was not so much interested in a way of just staging a tribunal, because we knew already she's lying. As soon as she opens the mouth, she's lying. But to go some sort deeper, a step deeper into the question, not the moral issue, but what is the breeding ground for lies? What is the breeding ground for fake news she produced all her life?
There were also things where you're noticing that she has curated even her own archives to make certain things not be there. And there was one example in particular I think you've talked about where there's something that references an interview that she did, but the interview is not there. And so you then go and find the interview, and can you?
Yeah, sure. There was, sometimes it's funny because there was a little hint for the front page 17 or something. There you will find an interview with Leni Riefenstahl. It was the Daily Express, an English newspaper, 1934. And some pages later, there was no interview, but you could see it's an empty page. So something was missing. And we just went to the archive of the Daily Express. We got the interview, and suddenly, of course, we realized why it was missing. One of the first questions she was asked about how she met Hitler, and then she started 2 years earlier. I bought Mein Kampf, and just reading the first page, I became an enthusiastic National Socialist. So the main reason for us was to look deeper. Fascism didn't start with the meeting of Adolf Hitler. It started much, much earlier, and to use Leni Riefenstahl's archive estate in a way to look very close, to get an insight of somebody who is, for me, a prototype of fascism.
Why would she have left so many things in the archive that would not benefit her memory the way she wanted to be remembered?
I think she's a very interesting mix of highly intelligent regarding achieving her goals. She really knew how to convince Hitler or Goebbels to get more money. She was a very good actress, so sometimes she cried, sometimes she victimized herself, so she had means and possibilities to get what she wanted. But on the other hand, I think she just loved to get acknowledged. People called her and said, "You are still the greatest artist ever, and we admire you," and just celebrate her again. And she was pleased.
I have a very crude theory on that, because you see, in the end of when the Second World War ended, she had to make up a story of her life which would prevent her to go to prison. For sure, there's people, a researcher I know, he said there were fires burning in front of her house before the American soldiers came to, interrogate her. So she might have destroyed evidence. And for some reason, I think because, she had to hide for so many decades, and she was such a diehard fascist until the very end. Maybe she left something in the end because she was sure maybe her time would come. For example, we found a box of film snippets, and it was cut out of Olympia, and the box was named H.A., Adolf Hitler. So she cut out Hitler for the use of the Olympic game film after the war, but she kept the snippets. And we always wondered why. Yeah. Did she wait for a time where maybe she can put them in again? The film ends with this phone call, and there's the guy saying, it will take 2 generations, and then we're going to be back at German virtue. And 2 generations, this is right now.
Right.
So she tried to maybe live the moment where her ideology would come back. She didn't quite achieve it, but she left some hints that she was a diehard believer. For me, Riefenstahl is always the question, how would I react? So for me, it's not a film about Leni Riefenstahl alone. It's a film about ourselves. The persistent question, what would you do? How would you stand up? Would you stand up? So this is, for me, the importance of this film is far beyond a historical document.
There are many sad and tragic aspects of this, but if she had been born, let's say, in America, what do you imagine she would have done with her life?
The German director Sternberg, he took Marlene Dietrich with him to the United States and made famous films. And she also applied. She also wanted to go to the States. And of course, the question came up, so would we make a film on her when she, instead of Marlene Dietrich, was in the States and made her career here and came back? I think maybe yes, but it would be another film, of course. And but it's a very interesting question, because it always means not just to judge her. That's what I said in the beginning, not just staging a tribunal, but at the same time be very precise regarding responsibility, regarding guilt, and having documents like the letter of the adjutant in the Konski case, showing she was not only an eyewitness of the first massacre of Jews, she was maybe even a catalyst. That's giving some sort of answer. And I think this is very important, because then you see she had to repress her responsibility because it was much bigger than we thought before.
She's a very modern type, She was an Insta girl before we even knew what it is like, because she was already going like this,
Oh,
all the time putting herself in the center of the interest. If you do this all the time, you forget about the rest of the world. You're not empathic. So that's a very modern thing as well to think about.
Congratulations to you both. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Yes, great.
Thank you.